This is the Philanthropy Show, connecting and inspiring philanthropy.
Welcome to the Philanthropy Show. I'm your host, Luann Saraga-Walters. Have you ever wondered how to maximize the return on your fundraising event? Events can be so willy-nilly, and there are so many different ways of conducting them now. And you might have seen a pattern that your event is slowly kind of fading into, Neverland. Well, we have hope for you. My guest today, Trace Kingham, who is the president and CEO of Kingham Signature Events. CEO, in this case, stands for Chief Experience Officer, has been an event planner for 20 plus years. He has just won a very prestigious award this year given by the International Live Events Association, the Esprit Award, and I'm going to have you talk about that in a second. And Trace also just created a curriculum for our Fundraising Success series, Standout Events that Exceed Expectations. And today's show, we're going to give you free 30 minutes of this preview full of great information that you're really going to gain a lot out of in the 3 courses that we share. So first off, Trace, with your experience, congratulations again on your award.
Thank you.
What was this Esprit Award?
It was voted on by the peers of the association, and really it was an
Accolade for...
Yeah, you know, I mean, for the work that I did for the American Red Cross Humanitarian of the Year Award. So it was super exciting, unexpected, but very much appreciated and honored.
And gave him a trip to New Orleans, which is fantastic.
Yeah,
so we're honored to, have you on the show today,
well,
but also to be able to work with you as co-instructors on this curriculum, which was absolutely fantastic. He's also the author of Standout. Talk about your book a little bit.
Sure, yeah. I wrote my book, 7 Steps to Planning an Event. Standout is really kind of gives the journey that I've had as a planner, playing on the roots of my theater background and how I fell into planning events and how they're live theater. So it really just kind of covers all the fundamentals of event planning.
Sharon and I have had the opportunity to work with Trace on a couple of events, and he really does make your event stand out. So really appreciate the fact that you're here.
Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about the curriculum. It has been an amazing amount of material, but walk us through what we see in this course.
Sure. I mean, first off, we talk about creating a clear and concise purpose. Then we look at the target market. What is your target market, and how do you discover who your target market is? And then we look at fundraising event fundamentals, and then wrap it all up with measuring success. So those are the meat and potatoes of it.
And what I love that he talks about in the measuring success section is that it's all about getting prepared to do even better at next year's event. So instead of just wondering, can we do as well as we did, or can we hit this goal, he gives us some really tangible ways of actually making that happen. And for this show, we are going to spotlight 3 of those lectures in this course, starting off with creating a well-defined purpose and what that might be. You might think that the sole purpose of your fundraising event is to raise funds. That can be, but it can also be in addition to, because you'll see ways in which you can engage the community and what effect that has on your nonprofit standing in the community and how you're perceived. All of those are very important. We're also going to then jump into one of the keys to maximizing the success of an event. And there are several, but we're sharing with you one in this show called the Event Blueprint. This is a Trace Kingham special. It was coined and manned by him, and some really good information that any person who works in fundraising and development and is responsible for, with perhaps the marketing and communications committee, creating that event, you're going to want to hear about the Event Blueprint. Then we're going to jump into measuring success. Now this course is on measuring success, but it's also tied around different things that you can do, calls to action, volunteer management. How can you see the success of your event going in the future? That's all part of that section. You're going to see a piece of that with this one lecture, Measuring Success. So we invite you to get out a notepad, get your pen out, take some notes. You're going to want to. And here's our preview for you of Fundraising Success, Standout Events that Exceed Expectations. In the breaks of the show, there's information about how you can learn more. But in the meantime, enjoy the show. Section 2, now we're talking about pre-event planning and the steps that go into that, starting with this lecture on creating a well-defined purpose. So let's just go to the essential core of that. Why is a purpose important?
A purpose is your driving force. It really gives you the roadmap to planning your event. If you don't understand clearly and concisely what your purpose is for your event, you will not have the direction and you will not exceed expectations.
Well, I think that people might be thinking that purpose is about fundraising, but you're saying that there's actually additional purposes there,
That's
and you
right.
really want to be clear on that. So walk us through those.
Okay, there are three main purpose components that you can look at, and you can only choose one of these. You can raise funds, raise awareness, or raise friends. Okay. So one of those three is...
We have a slide we're going to put up with that now, so as well. So we're looking at that. So raising awareness, raising, like you said, friends, and raising money.
Yeah.
Raising awareness, I think we probably get that, but in what capacity would that look like if you're...
I think it's taking your mission out into the community. It's bringing folks that are advocates or your cheerleaders and bringing friends to the table, getting it more information, getting more people to know more about what it is that you do so that they can help you in other areas, particularly fundraising possibly. But you need to understand a fundraising event is about raising money. But the ultimate purpose, if you want to just raise awareness, you're going to plan very differently on how what tactics you're going to use at your event. The experience is going to be very different if you're focused on raising awareness.
Interesting. This makes me think of, for those of you who are familiar with the Benavon style of event, which for Benavon, yes, there's a key element to raising funds, but Terry Axelrod, I believe, was the author of that, and she talks specifically to how you can have table captains who invite their friends, and it's really about networking further into the community to bring more people to the table to hear your story, to hear testimonials. So that would be kind of a raising awareness.
That's correct. That's
purpose.
A very great example of how you would raise awareness. Inherently, you're raising money,
right?
But the purpose is really to raise awareness, and the secondary benefit of that is raising funds, and and raising friends. So, yeah, that's a great point.
I love that he's saying this because I think we put so much pressure on ourselves as development people to just look at the fundraising capacity of it. But if you can also set those metrics to say, well, our real purpose was that we wanted to, yes, we wanted money, but we really wanted to get our story out into the world, so our community knows more about what we're doing, and try to measure that.
For sure.
Then you've got the purpose set.
For sure. So when you're talking to your stakeholders, you now have a clear, concise purpose in mind. You're going to propose very different elements in your event than you would if it was strictly raising money. So it really is important to understand that purpose and how you can use the tactics. And I say tactics, and I can give you an example, so I'm being very clear, is a tactic is an approach of which you take to create the experience. Having a beneficiary of your organization speak before the crowd and explain how the services that you provide have impacted and changed their lives for the better is a tactic.
Got it.
And that is one way in which the tone, the message that they're cascading through their conversation would look very different if you're trying to raise awareness or if you're trying to raise funds. For example, if they wanted to just share the mission of the organization and how it changed their lives, or if they were receiving funds and as part of that change and that benefit that you're offering, that would be a very different conversation or a different speech, if you will, that person would be sharing with the audience.
You make me think of a couple of examples that I know that there are some hospitals across the country who will often bring in a well-known band, a top 40 band, and they have a dance, and there might be somebody who kicks it off with just a brief, maybe 30-second blip about welcome to, our hospital foundation gala, but it's not about adding awareness to the community. It's really about having sold those dance tickets to bring in more money.
Right.
So that purpose then is really focused on raising money.
Correct.
But if you're having a tactic like you're talking about of having a beneficiary, somebody who's well known to your organization, who's passionate about your organization, who's a real cheerleader of your organization, who speaks at that event, and the whole purpose is to get testimonials of clients and whatnot. That's more about raising awareness from that standpoint.
Right.
So you follow the nuance of that. Yes, you're still raising money in both of those, but one's focus is to raise money, one's focus is to raise awareness.
And then we have raising friends,
Which is
really getting turning those individuals that are part of your organization or know a little bit about your organization and turning them into advocates, turning them into those cheerleaders, turning them into those worker bees in the community that you vitally need to get the message out, to get the work done, to raise the funds in major gift campaigns. So those are the things that you are doing when you're raising friends. For example, we just produced an event for an organization, and we sat down with their CEO, and we're, several years I've helped them over the last few years, and it's all been about fundraising. It's all been about we got to hit this dollar amount. This is critical to the budget, to the bottom line. Our spreadsheet is reliant on this amount of money that we raise. When we sat down and talked to the CEO about all the different elements that we were creating, he says, that's not important to me.
wow.
We have the right people in the room. We need to make this the best experience, and I don't care if we raise that amount of money. We need to make sure that those guests are having an amazing time, and our staff needs to be in those individuals' faces throughout the evening and talking to them and creating appointments so that we can turn them into major gifts later. So the tactics changed very quickly based on that conversation a few weeks prior to the event.
He just gave you your purpose.
That's right.
Yeah.
His purpose was all about the experience, really about raising awareness and friends.
And so, and friends then could be donors, it could be board members, it could be committee volunteers, somebody who's really passionate about your organization and gives of their time or talent or treasure to participate in what you're doing. So raising friends. Now, raising awareness, raising friends, raising money. Can you do all three of those?
It really should be one.
You want to focus on one, but
right.
you're going to have some impact with
all three, absolutely.
Okay.
All three are going to be part of your event, but your overall tactics and experience should be around one of those three, and make it clear and concise and easy to follow for everyone, because that, as you're going to learn later, that purpose is going to be throughout the entire planning process with whomever touches the event. And if you don't have it clear and concise, then it won't be as
And I've heard
potent.
you say that a couple of times, and that's on the slide as well, that clear and concise. And you might want to sit with your event committee and say, let's really kind of knock this out before we go into the next steps. What is that purpose? What is that overall one purpose? Knowing that the other two will happen as well, and yes, you will raise funds. But what is the overall purpose that you're looking to achieve? So I would take some time to do that a little bit, figure out, as Trace said earlier, how do you want to measure that? What would that look like? If you want to raise friends, are you looking for board members? Are you looking for potential major gift donors that you can seek? And if so, how many would you look at? Would you like to have 2? Would you like to have 3? You got to have something in place to measure.
That's right. And these purpose will then help you in identifying the metrics that you're going to use to measure success.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
Once you
That
know your
follows.
purpose, you can then easily put together some metrics that you're going to want to measure to, at the end of the event, look at and say, oh, we had great success because we hit these goals.
It's also important to know who you want to invite to your event, and what the whole point is in your purpose is to try to get the right people in those seats, right? Or buying those tickets, or at the dance floor, whatever it is you're trying to do. So we're going to move now into the next lecture, which is defining your target market, what that looks like, and how you do it. And so we'll see you in the next lecture.
Does your nonprofit hold fundraising events that wow your audience and exceed your fundraising goals? In Fundraising Success, Standout Events that exceed expectations, you will learn how to plan each step of your event to maximize impact and funds, the right ways to ask your guests for their help, to set appropriate sponsorship goals, how to create an auction that actually works, and much more. Using HD video lectures and downloadable reference sheets, this course will become your event planning guide for any size event all year round. Join today and we'll see you in class.
Here we are talking about the keys to maximizing success, and one of the most fundamental keys, I guess, I don't know if we can say it, the key, one of the key keys might be the event blueprint. So starting off with that, I know you're going to give us some examples and tell us what we need, but what is an event blueprint?
Sure, it's your roadmap. This is something that I've coined, and I look at, my father was an architect, so he always had blueprints laying around, and that's essentially was his roadmap to when he's building a building. So I came up with the event blueprint, and it's essentially your binder. It's a document that you can share with all the key stakeholders, all those that are helping you with the event, that has all that vital information that you need to have at fingertips when it's, you have an issue or a situation, or you just need that information to make a call. It's all right there.
So what kinds of things do you put in? Do you put in the pre-planning stuff? Do you put in the day of only stuff? What are the...
I have a slide for that, and
Okay.
so I think I use this as a tool that helps guide the staff, and then I can work as my staff is building an event blueprint. I can check in and help them and ask questions, or maybe I have questions that I need, and then I can look at the blueprint and I can find all that vital information in that one document. It typically, depending on the size of your event, 20, 30, 40 pages, but it's really worth it. It's a vital little booklet that you have at your ready.
Do you walk around with that on the day of? That's
Absolutely,
kind of like
yeah.
So what do you put, I always see event planners walking around and they have a key thing that they put right in the front, right on that top page of the binder. Mm-hmm. Is that going to be like your agenda or something?
That is your flow.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, all the key components that need to be in place and at what time.
Okay.
So that's how what I do. Everyone does it a little different, but that seems to be the most helpful. But in your event blueprint, you have your business plan, which we really is all the things that we've been talking about in the lectures of your marketing strategy, your key purpose, your clearly defined purpose,
your target
target
audience.
audience. So you don't have to have it all flushed out in this document, but you still want to state it at the beginning of the document. Then you have your checklists, your contact lists, risk management documents, and those are those insurance riders that you get from a vendor to verify that they are insured. And you want to make sure that all of your vendors that you use have the right proper insurance dependent upon what risks you want to take as an organization. And some of the venues that you use, they have minimum requirements, so you want to make sure you have all those in place, because at a moment's notice, if something would happen, and hopefully nothing would, you need that information very quickly in order to show liability that you're covered. So,
Sure.
Yeah. Then it also has contracts, those vendor contracts, so you can quickly look and see, hey, I thought that you were supposed to provide the steps to the stage, and then you can quickly look in that document and say, yeah, it's all in here. It's listed in your contract. Mm-hmm. Volunteer assignments, contact lists, auction descriptions, floor plans, anything you can think of that's vital to the event that you might need at your fingertips at the event itself is all right there.
Now, there's one aspect that might be cautionary and that I can think of, and that's your attendees' mailing addresses and things like that, your guest list.
Right.
You could add that in after, right?
Correct. Yes, you wouldn't want to have that information floating
In case you
around.
dropped
Right.
left your binder somewhere or whatnot.
Right,
So
right.
not sensitive information.
That's
but
right.
What I like about this, though, is you're using it as kind of a planning guide for everything that you need.
Yep.
And you could even tab delineate it.
That's right.
And then also, it's your day of guide as you're walking through.
Mm-hmm.
But then you can put all of your documents into it, and even your summaries as we get
That's
into evaluation later.
Mm-hmm.
You can have that all in one.
That's right.
So that is your blueprint.
Yeah, it is a great tool that has worked really well for me in managing my teams as they're going out into the events, as we're working with clients. If I'm not in the office and I'm working on a particular project, that my staff can then answer those questions because they can pull up the document and quickly assess if the information is there or not. And it really does help it make sure that we're all on the same team, that we're all working together for a cause. So.
And notice this is in the section that we're talking about keys to maximizing your success. Yes, you might have your vendor contracts and information on email. Yes, you may have your contact lists, etc., or the insurance policies from your vendors. But to have them all in one place and at your fingertips is how you maximize your success. It's not just about having them. It's about having them readily available. And take it from this guy, 20 plus years experience in event planning. If something might happen, you've probably seen it.
Oh, yeah.
So he's able to speak to that, to say, here is one additional method, one additional tool, or key, as we called it, to make sure that you are as successful as you can be. So you have also included in this lecture in the resource section an actual blueprint.
Absolutely. I'll provide a sample. You can use it, manipulate it, make it your own, make it unique to your organization, and it's really just a great tool for you to use and maximize the experience. And what I find is a lot of times you have to react quickly.
Yeah.
And having that versus, and especially if you're off-site at a venue, it's to pull up your computer, you may not have connection to an internet, and it just becomes cumbersome and vital time is lost, and it really is a lifesaver.
It's like your best friend.
Exactly.
Almost.
Exactly.
Well, that's awesome. So sometimes things do happen, like Trace just said. And so in our next lecture, we're going to look at contingency planning. How much do you need to do to protect and maximize the success of your event? Join us in the next lecture.
Do you feel like you're on a hamster wheel of fundraising activities, trying to meet a goal that's always just out of reach? Then join us in Fundraising Success, the Complete Development Plan, a discussion-style course designed for both brand new fundraisers and experienced professionals to help you create a development plan to increase your fundraising results. Select the fundraising activities that actually work for your organization. Set achievable financial goals and meaningful strategic goals. Create a useful timeline of fundraising activities, and much more. If you're ready to create your complete development plan using resources you can use again and again to modify your plan annually, then enroll today, and we'll see you in class. Enroll today at thephilanthropyshow.com.
Wow, we've covered an awful lot already in this course, and you have walked through preparation, you've walked through purpose, you've walked through the planning, what you need for maximizing your success. Now, say the event's over, right? And how do you ensure future success? So this section, Planning for Future Success, talks about analyzing, talks about measurements, and we're going to start by measuring success and looking at what are some of those things that probably typically you do measure, and some that you've probably never heard of, but that would be important to really maximize next year's success. So let's look at that first, Trace. How do you measure success from an event?
I have said this throughout these lectures. It ties back to your purpose.
Yes.
So your purpose and all of the metrics that you're measuring are pre-planned out before the event even takes place. So now the event is over, and it's now time to look at all the different components of your metrics and find out whether or not it was a success or whether you deem it not a success, and then that'll give you tips and insights in how you're going to change the experience for next time. So if you look at your purpose and you've got your metrics, some of the most simple things that most organizations do is a post-event survey. It's very insightful, gives you feedback. You have to be careful though, you got to take that information with a grain of salt, because those that are very disgruntled will participate and those that are over exuberant will participate. A lot of times if they're in the middle of the road, it was a great event, you're not going to really hear from them. So you just want to make sure you don't overreact to a post-event survey and really take it to a whole new direction because one person said that something happened to them. Things are going to happen, not everyone's going to be happy, and that's a hard. It's hard as a planner to digest. I have problems with that because I want to make everyone have a fabulous time. So you've got your post-event survey, and then did you have incremental growth from year to year, whether that's at your auctions, whether that's your ticket sales, whether that's attendance, whatever you deem as what you want to measure, they're all vital and all valuable. The one thing that I feel that a lot of organizations don't measure is what's happening in the experience. And that's that face-to-face conversations with those key people that you've identified, that you see on your guest list. You sat down with your team and you've had a conversation of like, the mayor is here, Bob Smith is here, Sally Susie Smith is here, whoever, and then you have a strategic opportunity to go and have a conversation with them. Then come back as a team, and then let's measure. Did those conversations happen, and did you convert those to meetings, those face-to-face meetings where you can have a major gift conversation, where you can have sponsorship for next year's events conversation? So measure those.
So how would you track, you've named a number of different ways that you can measure your success. Obviously, like he said, whatever your purpose is, was it to raise awareness, raise friends, or raise money? And maybe for raise money, you said we want to raise $20,000. And for raise friends, you said we want to have 5 more donors come into our sphere via other connections. And for raise awareness, you said we want to have 50 new people at our event that have never heard about us before so that we can gain that awareness. That's just one measurement. The next measurement, though, as the experience level is, how do you actually talk to somebody about their feeling about it? So, you know, you did mention the survey, like a survey monkey or whatnot, and that you get the extremes to give you the input. Who would you go to? Strictly the guests, or could you also go to some of your key volunteers and say, how was this year over year as an experience?
Yeah, I would create a focus group.
Oh, okay.
You know, create a focus group that it has a number of different individuals that are at the event. You could have a vendor. You could have a volunteer, several volunteers. You could have donors, sponsors, attendees who just purchased a ticket to sit and experience the event. Create a focus group and then really just get that information about how did this make it feel. Now, when you use a focus group, that's another event in itself that you have to carefully plan out so that it feels like, and it's not wasting their time.
Yeah.
You know, but it's very vital and very insightful to get that feedback pretty quickly after the event has concluded.
And what a great idea. And I'm wondering if you couldn't kind of plan that as you're
For sure.
going
Oh, for sure.
ahead and say, so as one of the follow-ups to our event, the event is on Tuesday, and if you could come on Thursday into the office and we'll have sandwiches or whatever, and we want to run through a series of questions about all the things that we've covered. To really get that experience.
And I would invite people ahead of the event, and then also invite people after the event, because it'll be interesting when you do this, and I've done this a number of times, where the person that knew that they were going to be part of the focus group when they came to the event, they were thinking a little bit different. They were paying attention to things as an observer, not as just a guest.
A participant.
Yeah. So then if you invite people immediately after, hey, we saw that you were at the event, we would love to have you participate in some post-event feedback. They weren't at the event thinking they were part of a focus group, so they would just then be able to give their feedback in a very honest, emotional, guest perspective way.
That's a great idea. I love the focus group concept. And then take all of this and put it into your event blueprint.
That's right. And then you can then use all this information to plan disruption for your next year's event. It's a great tool.
Now, I know it depends upon your purpose, but are there any key things that you feel should be measured for each event?
Yeah, I mean, expenses.
Okay.
You know, fundraising. So you have to have incremental growth to make sure that it's successful. I would also measure your social media posts. How much awareness does the event create beyond the event itself? How many media outlets were at the event? How many media outlets that were at the event actually cascaded information out there? So those are the key top 3 that I would say you'd want to pay attention to. Media, social media kind of wrapped up in that whole general media component. And then, you know, are you having incremental growth monetarily and from a guest perspective? People in seats. So.
And then you also have, remember, the event within the event, the auction event, or if
That's
you
right.
have something like that, to really kind of to track that. And if you haven't been tracking it year over year, you're losing the opportunity to be able to gauge your success or your challenges, what's working, what's not, to really move that needle forward on the success of your event. So think about that. Like you mentioned, a nonprofit who had an auction with 164 items.
Right, exactly.
And the very next year had 20 22.
Yeah.
But yet in the 22 year, the next year, did $2,000 better than the 164
Yeah,
items. So
yeah.
those are kinds of important things within the event too, to give you a look at, was it worth doing?
Right, because if
Do
we wouldn't have known if we wouldn't have tracked the 160 something items,
Right.
we wouldn't have known we were successful with just 22. And what that did was that freed her up to have so much more time to go out and sell $10,000 tables
Right.
and raise. So not only did we raise 2,000 more physically from the silent auction, then you have to look at the data and think, because of the time saved of not soliciting so many items and going around and picking them up and shaking hands with those donors for those items, those businesses that are giving you, she was able to sell $50,000 worth of tables.
Right.
So now there's a $52,000 gain.
Wow.
So you have to just dive in and really look at that information for what it is. And if you don't track, you just can't have that kind of aha moment.
And you can look and see based on your attendance and the overall funds you've raised, because sometimes we look at it and we go, we had 400 last year, we need to have 500 this year. But if you have 350 and you've done better than last year, that's not a failure.
Right. Right.
So you've gotten the right people in those seats.
And just always remember, quality over quantity in pretty much all aspects. If you have the right people in the room and you only have 200 and they're the right people, having 500 people in the room that aren't the right people in the room isn't going to serve you any better.
Now, you have seen the slide that we've had up, and we actually have that also in the resource section. So download that, and if you need to add other things that you want to track for measurements, write those on that slide, write those on that document, so that you can actually put that in your event blueprint, so that you know this is something that we want to track and we want to measure, and you can plan for that as you're planning your event. These are our key measurements that
and then have
at.
people in place to help you measure. So if you've got your volunteers helping you with the silent auction, make sure that information is being tracked properly. All those different components. If you've got someone that's responsible for tickets. So just, again, communication, have a plan all laid out in place well in advance of the event, so that it's very clear when the event happens, everyone knows their role. I'm tracking this, I'm doing that, I'm thinking, I'm going up to this person and talking to them about setting up a meeting. So
yeah, the event's not over when the venue doors are closed, not at all.
Not at all.
Or the whistle blows and the game is over. So one of the things that your tracking will allow you to do is to determine if you're successful or if you're not. And if you have a slow and steady decline, maybe it's time for a change. Maybe. We're going to look at that in the next lecture.